Every journey begins with a single step, but not every step changes the course of your life. There are moments when the noise of the world grows so loud that you can hardly hear your own thoughts. In those moments, people feel lost, abandoned, and painfully alone, as though no one understands the weight they carry. Yet history whispers a timeless truth that when you walk with God, you never truly walk alone. Picture this: a traveler standing at the edge of an unknown road, unsure of what lies ahead. The skies look heavy, the winds are restless, and the world seems uncertain. That traveler could be you. It could be anyone standing at the crossroads of life, asking, do I walk this path by myself? But when you take that step with God by your side, the road, no matter how uncertain, becomes bearable, even meaningful. Modern life is crowded with distractions. Screens demand attention, voices shout conflicting messages, and anxiety grows louder with every passing day. People feel as though they are walking alone through storms of pressure, comparison, and endless expectation. Yet here is the contrast. Walking without God is like wandering through a storm without shelter, while walking with Him is like standing on a foundation that cannot be shaken. Even in the fiercest storm, those who walk with God remain steady. This is not a call to religion alone. It is a call to alignment, a decision to walk in step with something greater than yourself. It is the awareness that your life has a compass, that your journey has direction, and that your struggles have meaning. Walking with God is not about escaping life's difficulties. It is about discovering strength within them. Because every trial walked with God becomes a testimony, every burden becomes lighter, and every lonely step becomes a path of purpose. So let us begin this journey together. Let us explore the power and the promise of walking with God and why it ensures you will never walk alone. And it begins right here with the first step, the call to walk. Now let us move to chapter 1, the call to walk. Life is full of storms, moments when the winds of uncertainty roar and the waves of anxiety crash against the walls of your heart. These storms come in many forms: the loss of a job, the breakdown of a relationship, the weight of financial struggle, the silence of unanswered prayers. In those moments, you may feel as though you are drifting without direction, tossed endlessly by forces you cannot control. But to walk with God is to have an anchor, a steady presence that holds you firm when everything else is shaking. Picture a ship caught in a violent storm. Without an anchor, it is at the mercy of the waves, dragged wherever the current pulls. But with an anchor buried deep into the seabed, the ship may rock, but it will not drift away. So it is with your life. God does not promise that storms will vanish, but He promises that if you walk with Him, you will not be lost to them. For His presence is the anchor that keeps you steady while others are swept away. Modern storms often arrive without warning. Anxiety creeps in through a late-night thought, fear arrives with an unexpected bill, pressure builds in a single conversation. These storms are real, but they do not define your destiny. With God as your anchor, what was meant to destroy you becomes the very trial that strengthens your faith. Many people search for anchors in temporary things: wealth, status, approval, possessions. Yet these anchors fail because when the storm grows fierce, they cannot hold. But those who anchor themselves in God discover stability that cannot be shaken. For when He is your foundation, you can smile through the rain, knowing the sun will rise again. This chapter is about that unshakable foundation. It is about discovering how God holds you steady when the world spins out of control. It is about learning to trust that even when the storm rages, you are never truly in danger, because your life is anchored in Him. Now let us continue deeper into chapter 2, the anchor in the storm, where we explore how His presence steadies your heart against the fiercest winds. Discipline is not glamorous. It is built in the quiet hours when no one is applauding. It is in the decision to pray when you feel too tired, to forgive when it feels unfair, to wait when everything in you wants to rush ahead. These daily acts may seem small, but together they shape a life of remarkable strength. For every choice to trust God in the unseen prepares you for breakthroughs in the seen. The contrast could not be clearer. The impatient heart demands quick results, chasing shortcuts that end in regret. But the trusting heart accepts God's timing, knowing that delay is not denial but preparation. And in the end, those who wait on the Lord rise stronger than those who rush without Him. Consider the farmer sowing his seeds. He does not demand a harvest the next morning, for he understands that time and care are required. Trust is the same. Each prayer, each act of faith, each choice of patience is a seed planted in the soil of God's promise. And though the harvest may take time, it is always worth the wait. Impulse often leads people to collapse under pressure because they built no discipline to sustain them. But trust practiced daily becomes like a muscle that grows stronger with use. And when the storm comes, you stand, not because the storm is weaker, but because your discipline has made you stronger. The fruit of trust is endurance, the ability to walk steadily while others stumble. The discipline of trust is not a burden, but a blessing. It frees you from anxiety because you no longer feel pressured to control what only God can control. It frees you from regret because you no longer chase shortcuts that lead to emptiness. Now let us continue deeper into chapter 4, the discipline of trust, as we uncover how trust becomes the rhythm of a life anchored in God's timing. Trust is clearest when the path ahead is hidden. Anyone can trust when the outcome is obvious, but true faith is tested when you cannot see what tomorrow holds. Walking with God means believing He has already written the ending, even when you are still in the middle of the story. And in that belief, you find the courage to keep moving forward one step at a time. Think of Abraham, asked to leave his homeland without knowing where God was leading him. To others, it may have seemed reckless, but in truth, it was the highest form of trust. He stepped into the unknown not because he had answers, but because he trusted the one who held them. His legacy still speaks today, reminding us that disciplined trust leaves footprints far beyond our own lifetime. In modern life, trust is tested in countless ways. The student preparing for exams wonders if their effort will ever pay off. The parent working tirelessly wonders if their sacrifices are enough. The worker laboring faithfully wonders if their diligence will ever be recognized. In each case, the call is the same. Keep walking, keep trusting, for your faithfulness will not be wasted. Trust also requires surrendering control. The human instinct is to grasp, to hold tightly to plans, to demand certainty before moving. But trust releases that grip, placing tomorrow into God's hands while focusing on today's obedience. And in that surrender, you discover the freedom of knowing that you are carried, not abandoned. This is why discipline is so essential. Without it, trust weakens, collapsing at the first sign of delay or difficulty. But with it, trust becomes a rhythm of life, a steady heartbeat that carries you forward. Now let us continue in chapter 4, the discipline of trust, to see how consistent trust shapes not only the present, but the future yet unseen. From the beginning of time, one truth has remained unshakable. When you walk with God, you never walk alone. Generations have passed, kingdoms have risen and fallen, and yet His presence has remained constant, guiding every step of those who trust Him. The timeless promise of God is not that life will be easy, but that He will always be with you through it all. And in that promise lies the deepest source of strength humanity has ever known. Consider the words spoken through the prophet Isaiah. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. Notice that the promise is not to avoid the waters, but to walk through them without being overwhelmed. God's promise has never been the absence of difficulty, but the assurance of His presence within difficulty. And that assurance has carried countless men and women through trials into triumph. The timeless promise also speaks to our modern struggles. In a world of anxiety, loneliness, and relentless pressure, many feel abandoned and unseen. Yet God's presence whispers in the silence, reminding you that you are never forgotten, never forsaken. Even in the noise of the world, His voice cuts through, steadying your heart and guiding your path. Think of the countless people who have walked before us, heroes of faith, quiet saints, ordinary believers. Their lives testify to this truth. Though storms came, though doubts rose, though battles raged, they were never alone. And the same God who walked with them walks with you today. His promise has no expiration date. It is as true now as it was thousands of years ago. Chapter 7 begins here with the unchanging promise of God's presence. It is the anchor that steadies every generation, the light that guides every step, the hope that cannot be extinguished. And when you grasp this truth, fear loses its power, and faith takes root. Now let us continue deeper into chapter 7, the timeless promise, as we uncover how this eternal truth reshapes the way we live today. The timeless promise of God is not bound by time, culture, or circumstance. It stretches from generation to generation, declaring the same truth: you are never alone when you walk with Him. Every step you take is guided, every burden you carry is shared, and every battle you fight is strengthened by His presence. This is the unchanging anchor of life, the foundation that cannot be shaken. Think of your own journey, every hardship, every unanswered question, every moment of doubt. Looking back, you can see that even when you felt alone, God was carrying you. The doors that closed, the storms that came, the losses you endured, all were places where His presence sustained you. And if He has been faithful before, He will be faithful again. The timeless promise also points forward. The same God who walks with you today will walk with you tomorrow and into eternity. His presence is not seasonal or temporary. It is everlasting, extending beyond this life into the life to come. And with that assurance, you can live not with fear, but with confidence, knowing your story is safe in His hands. This book closes where it began, with the truth that when you walk with God, you never walk alone. Every storm, every fear, every obstacle is only proven that His presence is stronger than anything against you. And as you continue your journey, carry this promise with you. He will never leave you, He will never forsake you, and He will always guide your steps. With this, we conclude Chapter 7, the timeless promise, and with it, the reminder that your destiny is secure, your future is protected, and your walk is never alone. So as you step forward from here, remember this: the journey of life will never be free of storms, challenges, or questions. But you do not face them alone. You walk with the one who commands the winds, who parts the seas, who writes destinies. Every door you enter, every battle you fight, every dream you pursue is strengthened by His presence. And that presence is your greatest promise, timeless, unshakable, eternal. When you walk with God, you never walk alone. That truth will carry you through today, tomorrow, and every day beyond. Hold it, live it, believe it, and let it transform the way you see your journey. For your destiny is not uncertain. It is secure in the hands of the one who walks with you. The timeless promise is more than comfort. It is transformation. God's presence does not only accompany you, it changes you. Fear turns into courage, weakness becomes strength, and despair gives way to hope. This is not because of who you are, but because of who walks beside you. Think of Moses at the burning bush. He felt unworthy, unqualified, and afraid, yet God's promise was simple: I will be with you. That assurance turned a hesitant shepherd into a fearless leader who confronted kings. And the same presence that transformed Moses is available to transform you. Modern struggles may look different, but the promise remains the same. Anxiety, depression, and fear of failure may whisper that you are not enough, but God's presence declares that His strength is made perfect in your weakness. And when you rest in that truth, you rise above battles that once defeated you. The timeless promise also reshapes how you see setbacks. Without God, obstacles feel final, like dead ends.
But with Him, setbacks become setups, delays become training grounds, and losses become lessons.
Every trial becomes an opportunity for His power to be revealed in your life. This is why His promise is eternal. It cannot be canceled by difficulty or erased by time. What He declared thousands of years ago still stands unbroken today. And if you hold on to this truth, no storm, no enemy, no doubt can steal your confidence. Now let us continue deeper into Chapter 7, the timeless promise, as we uncover how His eternal presence secures not just your today, but your eternity. The timeless promise of God stretches beyond culture, beyond generations, beyond the rise and fall of nations. What comforted the hearts of ancient believers still comforts us today, for His word has not lost its power. The challenges may look different. Today it is anxiety, distraction, and loneliness, but the solution remains the same: His presence. And that presence gives you the courage to live with peace in a restless world. Consider how technology surrounds us with endless noise. Notifications, comparisons, and constant demands pull at our focus, leaving us weary and distracted. Yet even in this digital chaos, God's voice remains steady, calling you back to stillness, reminding you of His nearness. His promise is not bound by silence or noise. It reaches you wherever you are. The timeless promise also redefines success. The world tells you that success is measured by wealth, status, or recognition. But walking with God reveals a higher truth. Success is measured by faithfulness, by peace in your spirit, by alignment with His will. And when you live in that truth, you discover that His presence is greater than any prize the world can offer. Think of how many chase after approval, believing it will bring fulfillment. Yet approval fades, applause ends, and recognition is forgotten. God's presence, however, never fades, never ends, and never forgets you. To walk with Him is to step into a promise that cannot be taken away by time, culture, or circumstance. This is the strength of the timeless promise. It is not shaken by history, not weakened by change, not broken by opposition. It stands as strong today as it did for Abraham, Moses, David, and Paul. And just as it carried them, it carries you. Now let us continue further into chapter 7, the timeless promise, to see how this eternal truth transforms not only your present, but your future as well. Gratitude is what keeps the heart ready when God opens a new door. Without gratitude, people walk through opportunities with entitlement, forgetting the grace that placed them there. But when you remain thankful, you never lose sight of the truth that every open door is a gift, not a guarantee. Gratitude transforms opportunities into testimonies and positions you to honor God with what He has entrusted to you. Every door God opens carries responsibility. It is not just an invitation to blessing, it is a call to stewardship, to walk faithfully through what He has entrusted to your care. Many squander opportunities because they see them as rewards instead of responsibilities. But those who treat divine doors with reverence discover that faithfulness leads to even greater doors ahead. Think again of Paul, whose prison doors opened by God's power. He did not run away selfishly. He used the moment to proclaim freedom not only for himself but for others. That is the mark of walking through divine doors. You use them to serve, to lift, to glorify God, not just yourself. And in doing so, the door you walk through becomes a blessing for many, not just for you. Chapter 6 reminds us that not every door can be forced, and not every opportunity is meant to be taken. True destiny unfolds when you walk faithfully, obey patiently, and remain grateful, allowing God to open the doors that align with His purpose. And when He opens them, they will not only change your life, but ripple outward to impact others. With this truth, let us now move to chapter 7, the timeless promise, where we will see how walking with God ensures that you never walk alone, and that every step carries eternal significance. Obedience is often the key that unlocks doors only God can open. Many wait for opportunities but ignore the daily instructions that prepare them to handle those opportunities. God tests faithfulness in small things before entrusting greater doors to you. And when you prove faithful, you will see doors open that no human influence could have arranged. Consider Noah, asked to build an ark long before rain had ever fallen. To the world, his obedience looked foolish, but to God it was preparation for destiny. Because Noah obeyed in what made no sense, the door of salvation opened for his family when the floods came. His faithfulness positioned him for a door that preserved not just his life, but the future of humanity. In modern life, obedience still prepares you for divine openings. The unseen choices, honesty in work, patience in waiting, diligence in effort become the seeds that grow into greater opportunities. Those who cut corners may rise quickly, but their doors close just as fast. Those who walk faithfully with God discover doors that remain open. For God's opportunities are not fleeting. They are foundations for lasting impact. Obedience also requires humility. Many miss divine doors because they are too proud to take small steps, expecting only grand entrances. Yet God often tests your willingness to serve in obscurity before He places you on the stage of influence. And when you pass that test, the door He opens cannot be shut by anyone. This is why walking with God is never wasted effort. Even when you feel unseen, every act of obedience is noticed by Him. And in His timing, obedience becomes the bridge to opportunity. Faithfulness becomes the key, and destiny becomes reality. Now let us continue deeper into chapter 6, doors only God can open, as we uncover how gratitude keeps you ready for every opportunity He provides. One of the greatest disciplines in life is learning to wait for the right door. Impatience drives people to force their way forward, often into places they were never called to be. But when you trust God's timing, you learn that delay is not denial, but preparation for something greater. But the door He opens is always worth the wait. Think of David, anointed as king while still a shepherd boy. He had the promise, but he did not yet have the throne. Years passed, filled with battles, rejection, and waiting. Yet in that waiting, God was preparing him not just to wear a crown, but to carry the weight of a kingdom. And when the door finally opened, he was ready because the waiting had shaped him into a leader. In modern life, people often misinterpret closed doors as failure. The job not offered, the promotion denied, the relationship that ends. These moments feel like loss. But in truth, they are divine redirections, protecting you from stepping through doors that would weaken your destiny. For every no that comes from God, there is a greater yes waiting in His time. Divine doors also reveal themselves through peace. While forced opportunities bring anxiety and unrest, God's opportunities carry clarity, alignment, and strength. You may not understand every detail, but you will sense His presence giving you confidence to step forward. And in that peace, you know the door before you is not by accident, but by design. Walking with God means refusing to force what is not yours, while faithfully preparing for what is. It means trusting that if a door remains closed, it is not meant for you, at least not yet. And when the right door opens, it will be so clear that you will know it could only have been God. Now let us continue deeper into chapter 6, Doors Only God Can Open, as we explore how obedience positions you for doors you could never open on your own. Every life is filled with doors. Some open easily, others remain locked, and some cannot be opened no matter how hard you try. People spend years forcing their way through doors that were never meant for them, exhausting their strength and losing their peace. Yet the truth is clear. The greatest doors in life are not opened by human effort, but by divine timing. And when you walk with God, you discover that He opens doors no one else can shut. Human effort has limits. You can network, plan, and work tirelessly, but there are doors that remain closed until God Himself turns the key. These are the moments that remind you that destiny is not earned by striving alone. It is unlocked by grace. And when God opens a door, no opposition, no critic, no enemy can keep it closed. Consider Paul and Silas in prison. Their situation seemed hopeless, locked behind bars, guarded by soldiers, stripped of freedom. Yet in the middle of the night, as they prayed and sang hymns, the prison doors flew open, not by human hands, but by divine power. That same power is at work in your life, capable of opening what seems permanently sealed. Modern life is no different. You may strive for promotions, opportunities, or breakthroughs, only to feel doors slammed in your face. But when the right moment arrives, God orchestrates circumstances in ways you could never arrange. Suddenly, the impossible becomes reality, and what once felt out of reach becomes the very stage for your destiny. Chapter 6 begins with this truth. Not every door is yours to open, but every door meant for you will open in God's timing. Your role is not to force, but to remain faithful, trusting that the right door will open when the season is right. And when it does, you will understand why others remain shut. Now let us continue deeper into chapter 6, Doors Only God Can Open, as we uncover how to recognize and walk through the opportunities He places before you. Destiny requires protection, because not every person and not every opportunity is meant to walk with you. Some paths would weaken you, some voices would mislead you, and some doors would distract you from your purpose. God's presence ensures that you are not trapped by what looks good but is not good for you. And every time He removes something, He is preserving the destiny He has placed within you. Protection is not always comfortable. You may grieve what is lost, not realizing that heaven has shielded you from pain you could not endure. You may feel alone in the moment, but later you will see that God never left you. He was simply guiding you into a safer path. And in hindsight, every removal will reveal itself as an act of love, not abandonment. Think of Jesus in the garden before His arrest. The disciples wanted to fight, but He told them to put down their swords, for the Father's plan required a greater protection, the fulfillment of destiny. Protection is not always keeping you from struggle. Sometimes it is carrying you through it so that your purpose is fulfilled. And because He trusted the Father's presence, His destiny became the world's salvation. The same truth applies to you. Every delay, every redirection, every removal carries divine purpose. Nothing is wasted, and no step is outside of His watchful care. And when you trust His presence, you walk with boldness, knowing your destiny is secured by the one who sees the end from the beginning. Chapter 5 has shown us that destiny is not only about pursuit, it is about protection. With God, every closed door, every lost opportunity, every unexpected turn becomes part of a larger design. And though protection may feel painful, it is always purposeful. Now let us move into chapter 6, Doors Only God Can Open, where we will see how His timing unlocks opportunities that no human effort could achieve. One of the greatest signs of God's love is His willingness to protect you from what you think you want. Often people believe they know what is best, but their perspective is limited, clouded by emotions and urgency. God sees the road ahead, the unseen consequences, the hidden traps, the dangers disguised as opportunities. And in His wisdom, He steps in, removing what would harm you even when you are unaware of it. Think of the job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the plan that failed. In the moment, these felt like losses, but in hindsight, they were blessings in disguise. For every closed door redirected you toward something greater, toward opportunities that aligned with your true calling. What once felt like defeat becomes a testimony of protection when you look back with eyes of faith. Divine protection often comes in the form of pruning. Just as a gardener trims branches to help a tree grow stronger, God removes what is unnecessary so that you can bear more fruit. At first, pruning feels like loss, but in time it reveals itself as growth. For every removal makes room for something far greater to flourish. Modern life is full of these divine protections. The business deal that collapses may save you from financial ruin. The friendship that fades may spare you from betrayal. The delay in your plans may give you time to develop the strength needed for the next season. Each of these moments is not random. It is God protecting you so you can fulfill the destiny He prepared for you. This is why walking with God brings confidence in uncertainty. You do not need to fear what is taken away because His presence ensures that nothing removed is greater than what is to come. Protection is not the end of the story. It is the preparation for the next chapter of your destiny. Now let us continue deeper into Chapter 5, Destiny Protected by Presence, as we explore how God's presence secures your future by guiding your steps. Protection from God does not always look the way we expect. To us, it may look like failure, rejection, or disappointment, but to Him, it is preservation. What you call a setback, God calls a safeguard. What you see as loss, He sees as positioning. And when you walk with Him, you learn to reinterpret closed doors not as punishment, but as protection. Consider how often people pray for God to bring something into their lives, unaware that what they desire may harm them. Out of love, God sometimes withholds what they ask for, sparing them from consequences they cannot yet see. A denied opportunity is often the very thing that saves you from destruction, and in time you will look back and thank Him for the prayers He did not answer. Think of Israel in the wilderness. They longed to return to Egypt, back to bondage, because freedom felt uncertain. But God refused to let them go backward, because He had promised them a greater land ahead. His presence protected them not only from their enemies, but from their own short-sighted desires. The same principle holds in your life today. Sometimes the people who walk away are removed because their presence would weaken your faith. Sometimes the delays you face are God's way of aligning you with a greater season of growth. And sometimes the obstacles you meet are not blockages, but detours that redirect you toward your true destiny. Walking with God requires the discipline to trust that His presence protects you even when you do not understand. This is where faith matures, when you choose to see His hand in what is missing, not only in what is given. For destiny is not about holding on to everything. It is about holding on to the right things. Now let us continue further into Chapter 5, Destiny Protected by Presence, to see how divine protection prepares you for divine purpose. Destiny is a word filled with promise. Yet many people never reach theirs because they walk unprotected. Along the journey, there are voices, distractions, and even relationships that appear good but lead to harm. Left unchecked, these influences can pull you away from the very purpose God designed you to fulfill. But when you walk with God, His presence acts as a guard, removing what threatens your destiny before it can destroy you. At times, this protection feels painful. You may wonder why certain doors close, why certain people leave, why certain opportunities vanish. It can feel like rejection, but in truth it is redirection. For God is not taking something from you, He is preparing something for you. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers and sold into slavery. To the human eye, it looked like his life was being destroyed. But God was positioning him for leadership, removing him from an environment that could never contain his destiny. What felt like abandonment was actually protection, for God's presence was with him every step of the way. The same is true today. Sometimes God will remove relationships that seem important because He knows they would weaken you. Sometimes He will close doors, not because He is punishing you, but because walking through them would lead to regret. And sometimes He will isolate you, not to leave you empty, but to strengthen you for what comes next. This is the beauty of walking with God. His presence is not only a comfort, but a shield. It blocks what is harmful, even when you cannot see it. It defends your destiny from enemies disguised as friends, from distractions disguised as opportunities. Now let us continue deeper into Chapter 5, Destiny Protected by Presence, where we uncover how God's removals are often His greatest acts of love. The legacy of trust is not measured in moments, but in lifetimes. A single act of trust may seem small, but when repeated daily, it builds a foundation that generations can stand upon. Children learn to walk in faith when they see their parents trusting God. Communities grow stronger when leaders build on trust instead of fear. And history remembers those who chose the discipline of trust when everything around them urged them to give up. Trust also creates resilience. Life will always bring unexpected twists. Doors will close. Plans will fail. People will disappoint. But the one who practices disciplined trust is not destroyed by these moments. Instead, they rise from them with greater strength. For every setback becomes a setup for a testimony, and every delay becomes proof of endurance. Trust shapes how you see time itself. While the impatient see waiting as wasted, the faithful see waiting as training. The one who trusts understands that God is never late but always precise, working all things together at the right moment. And with that assurance, patience becomes not a burden, but a gift. Chapter 4 has shown us that trust is not passive. It is active, disciplined, and daily. It is the practice of surrendering control, choosing patience over impulse, and building strength through consistency. And when trust becomes the rhythm of your life, you discover a peace that no storm can shake and a strength that no trial can break. With this foundation set, let us now move to Chapter 5, Destiny Protected by Presence, where we will see how God removes certain obstacles and people not to harm you, but to guard the purpose He has placed within you. Trust is the heartbeat of every meaningful relationship, and when it comes to walking with God, trust becomes the very foundation of your journey. But trust is not built in a single moment. It is forged through discipline, through consistency, through the daily decision to lean on God even when you cannot see the outcome. Many want the rewards of trust without the discipline of practice, but true faith is proven in daily choices. And when you choose trust again and again, it becomes the strength that steadies your entire life. The difference between careless living and disciplined trust is like the difference between drifting and steering. The careless life is guided by impulse, driven by feelings, moods, and fleeting desires. But the disciplined life is guided by principle, anchored in truth, strengthened by patience, and directed by faith. And it is this discipline that builds a legacy unshaken by time or trial. Consider the athlete training for victory. He does not win on the day of the competition. He wins in the unseen hours of practice, in the discipline of rising early, in the refusal to quit when no one is watching. In the same way, walking with God is not proven in moments of comfort, but in moments of pressure. Every prayer, every act of obedience, every choice to trust becomes a brick in the foundation of your faith. Trust is tested most when life makes no sense. When prayers seem unanswered, when doors close, when waiting feels endless, it is discipline that keeps you from giving up. Trust says, even when I do not understand, I will not let go. And in that steadfastness, you find peace that surpasses understanding. Chapter 4 begins here with the discipline of trust. It is about learning that trust is not an emotion, but a decision, a discipline, a way of living. And when you practice it daily, your life begins to shine with the strength of consistency. Now let us continue deeper into Chapter 4, the discipline of trust, to see how this discipline reshapes not just moments, but entire destinies. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward even when fear is present. Many wait for the moment when fear disappears before they act, but that moment rarely comes. The truth is, courage is born in the very presence of fear, when you choose to trust God more than your doubts. And each courageous step strengthens your faith until fear no longer controls your path. Think of Peter stepping out of the boat onto the stormy waters. Fear told him the waves would swallow him whole. But faith told him that as long as he kept his eyes on Jesus, he could do the impossible. And though he stumbled, the lesson remained. Faith transforms sinking moments into stepping stones. Your fears may look different. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. Yet the principle remains the same. When you walk with God, those fears no longer dictate your limits. They may whisper, but they cannot command. They may threaten, but they cannot conquer. Because the presence of God turns fear into the fuel that drives you forward. Chapter 3 has shown us that fear is not the end. It is the beginning of faith. Every great act of courage in history was made not by people who felt no fear, but by those who refused to bow to it. And so it is with you. Your fears are not signs of weakness, but invitations to trust more deeply. And when you answer that invitation, you discover that God never intended you to walk in fear, but to walk in faith. With this truth, we now move forward. We step out of the shadows of fear and into the light of discipline and trust. For the next stage of walking with God is not only about courage, it is about consistency. Let us now turn to chapter 4, the discipline of trust, where we will see how trust in God shapes a life of strength and endurance. Faith is like a shield that guards your heart against the arrows of fear. Fear will always attempt to strike through doubt, through failure, through voices that say you cannot overcome. But when you walk with God, those arrows lose their power, for His presence covers you. The very things that once wounded you now remind you of His protection. Imagine a soldier stepping onto a battlefield. Fear would tell him to retreat, to abandon the fight, to preserve his safety. But with a shield in hand, he moves forward, knowing that while arrows may fly, he is not defenseless. In the same way, faith allows you to advance in life, knowing that even in danger, you are covered. Fear says, stay where you are, it's safer. But faith says, move forward, God is with you. Fear convinces you to settle for less, but faith urges you to step into more. And each step you take in faith builds momentum that no fear can stop. Faith also transforms how you see obstacles. Where fear sees walls, faith sees doors waiting to open. Where fear sees endings, faith sees beginnings. And what once seemed impossible becomes not only possible but inevitable, because God delights in turning impossibilities into testimonies. This is the transformation at the heart of faith. It does not deny fear, but it refuses to surrender to it. It is the shift from paralysis to progress, from hesitation to action. And when faith leads, fear becomes nothing more than a shadow, powerless to control your destiny. Now let us continue further into chapter 3, Fear into Faith, as we see how courage is born in the very places fear once lived. Fear disguises itself in many ways. It shows up as procrastination, as doubt, as the constant need for approval. Beneath those masks lies the same root, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of being not enough. And yet, most people never confront these fears. They let them dictate the boundaries of their lives. But with God, those fears lose authority, because His Word declares that you are more than your limitations. Faith, on the other hand, is not blind optimism. It is trust rooted in God's unchanging character. It is not pretending the storm isn't real, but believing that the storm is not stronger than the one who walks with you. Faith is not the denial of fear. It is the decision to move forward in spite of it. And that decision separates those who live bound from those who live free. Consider the person who hesitates to pursue a dream because fear whispers, you will fail. They delay, they wait, and life passes them by. But the one who trusts God steps forward, even trembling, and discovers that doors open where fear insisted they would remain shut. This is how fear becomes faith, when you act not because you are fearless, but because you are faithful. Fear thrives on isolation. It convinces you that no one else understands, that you are facing the battle alone. But faith reminds you that God has already gone before you, and that He walks beside you even now. You are never abandoned in your struggle. The presence of God ensures that even in darkness, you are never truly alone. And once you embrace that truth, fear begins to shrink, losing its voice in the light of faith. The journey from fear to faith is not about erasing fear. It is about reassigning authority. Fear may still knock at your door, but faith decides whether it is allowed inside. And when faith takes the lead, fear becomes nothing more than background noise. Now let us continue further in chapter 3, Fear into Faith, as we uncover how faith equips you to confront even the deepest fears with courage. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in life. It can paralyze dreams, silence voices, and chain people to a life of hesitation. Fear tells you that you are not enough, that you cannot succeed, that you are destined to fail before you even begin. Many walk their entire lives under the shadow of fear, never realizing they are carrying invisible chains. But when you walk with God, fear loses its grip, for He transforms fear into faith. Faith is not the absence of fear, it is the courage to move forward despite it. The fearful heart waits for certainty before acting, but faith steps out even when the path is unclear. Faith whispers that you are not walking alone, that every step you take is guided by unseen hands. And those who choose faith over fear rise to heights that fear could never reach. Consider the story of David standing before Goliath. Fear told every soldier in the camp that the giant was too big to defeat. But faith told David that the giant was too big to miss because he did not stand alone, he stood with God. That same faith is available to you today, turning your giants into stepping stones for victory. Fear thrives in uncertainty, in the unknown spaces of life. But faith thrives in trust, believing that God already knows what you cannot see. Fear says, "What if I fail?" Faith responds, "What if this is the very step that changes everything?" And with each decision of faith, your life shifts from hesitation to boldness, from limitation to possibility. This chapter is about that transformation, about learning to confront fear not with human strength, but with divine assurance. It is about shifting from trembling to trusting, from doubt to courage, from despair to hope. And as you will see, when you walk with God, fear does not disappear. It bows to faith. Now let us continue deeper into chapter 3, Fear into Faith, where we discover how to turn life's greatest fears into opportunities for unshakable courage. Peace in the middle of chaos is one of the greatest gifts of walking with God. It is not the kind of peace the world offers, which depends on perfect circumstances, silence, or comfort. It is a deeper peace that exists even when the winds rage and the waters rise. It is the assurance that no matter what surrounds you, God's presence surrounds you even more. Think of the eye of a hurricane. Around it, winds howl and destruction spreads, yet within the center there is stillness. That is what it means to anchor yourself in God. You may be surrounded by chaos, but within you remain steady. The storm loses its power when it cannot shake your heart. This peace is not passive. It is powerful. It gives you clarity when others panic, strength when others collapse, and endurance when others surrender. It allows you to step forward with confidence, not because the storm has ended, but because you know the one who commands the storm. And when you realize that truth, fear no longer chains you. You live free even in the fiercest battle. Chapter 2 has shown us that storms are inevitable, but they are not undefeatable. With God as your anchor, every storm becomes a stepping stone, every trial becomes a teacher, and every hardship becomes a hidden blessing. You may bend, but you will not break. You may stumble, but you will not fall. For your life is held steady by hands stronger than the fiercest winds. Now, as we close this chapter, take this truth with you. Walking with God means you will face storms, but you will never face them alone. His presence steadies you, His peace calms you, and His strength sustains you. And with Him, every storm that rises will only prove the strength of your anchor. Let us now move to chapter 3, Fear into Faith, where we will see how God transforms our greatest fears into the foundation of unshakable courage. Every storm carries a lesson, and every trial contains an opportunity for growth. Without storms, we would never learn resilience, never discover the depth of our faith, never realize the true strength within us. When you walk with God, storms shift from being punishments to becoming teachers. They shape your character, sharpen your vision, and prepare you for the destiny waiting ahead. Think of the oak tree standing tall in the open field. When storms rage, its branches may bend and its leaves may be stripped away, but the roots grow deeper into the soil. In the same way, when the storms of life hit you, they may shake your outer strength, but they drive your roots deeper into faith. And with each passing storm, you rise taller, stronger, and more unshakable. But storms also reveal what cannot stand. Just as weak structures collapse in heavy winds, fragile beliefs and shallow commitments fall apart under pressure. If your anchor is in temporary things, storms will always expose the weakness. Yet if your anchor is in God, storms prove not your fragility, but your endurance. The world tells you to avoid discomfort at all costs, to chase pleasure and run from pain. But avoiding storms leaves you untested and unprepared. Walking with God teaches you to face them with courage, knowing that He walks beside you. And when you endure, you gain the quiet joy of knowing that what was meant to break you has only made you stronger. This is the power of the anchor. It does not remove the storm, but it ensures you outlast it. Others may collapse, but you will still be standing. Others may give up, but you will move forward. Now let us continue in chapter 2, The Anchor in the Storm, as we uncover how peace can exist even in the middle of chaos. Without an anchor, people drift into despair, tossed by the waves of uncertainty. They may cling to money, success, or relationships, hoping these will steady them, but eventually these anchors fail. The storm exposes what is fragile, and when the anchor is not strong enough, everything collapses. But those who walk with God discover a foundation that never fails, even when the world around them crumbles. Consider the story of two builders, one who built his house on sand, the other on solid rock. The storm came to both, but only one house stood firm. That parable was not just about buildings, it was about lives. The one who anchors in God builds a life that cannot be destroyed by disappointment, rejection, or loss. The storms of modern life are subtle but powerful. They come in the form of constant comparison, the silent pressure to always be more, the fear of being left behind. Many are swept into depression because they anchor their identity in fleeting approval. When your identity is anchored in God, you stand unshaken, no matter who praises or rejects you. Anxiety may roar like thunder, telling you that you will fail. Fear may whisper that you are not enough, that you will never succeed, that you are alone. But God's presence speaks louder than fear, reminding you that you are chosen, valued, and carried through every storm. With that assurance, you walk not with trembling, but with confidence, knowing that no storm is greater than the one who anchors you. To have God as your anchor is to live differently from the world. While others panic, you remain calm. While others give up, you press forward. While others collapse under pressure, you stand tall. This does not mean you are immune to pain, but it means you are never crushed by it. Now let us go further into chapter 2, the anchor in the storm, to see how storms become teachers when your foundation is God himself. The extraordinary truth is that walking with God does not remove the struggles of life, but it transforms how you face them. Challenges that once crushed you now become opportunities to grow. Failures that once defined you now become stepping stones to wisdom. And loneliness that once consumed you now becomes a sacred space where you hear God most clearly. Imagine two travelers walking side by side. One carries his burdens alone. Every setback feels heavier, every obstacle impossible. The other walks with God, and though the burdens are real, they never break him. For every weight he carries is shared, and every obstacle he faces becomes smaller in the presence of divine strength. That is the difference between walking alone and walking with God, the difference between despair and hope. Some may ask, if God is with me, why do I still face hardship? The answer is not that God removes every hardship, but that he strengthens you to endure it and rise above it. Just as fire refines gold, challenges refine the soul. And when you walk with God, every trial shapes you into someone stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the destiny ahead. This is why answering the call is so vital. To ignore it is to drift through life, carried by the winds of chance. To answer it is to anchor yourself to a purpose that no storm can destroy. It is to step boldly into a future that may be uncertain to you, but is certain to God. Chapter 1 has shown us that the call to walk with God is both an invitation and a decision, a choice that defines your foundation, your focus, and your future. Once you hear and answer that call, life takes on a direction filled with clarity and meaning. But the journey does not end here. It deepens. Now let us move forward to chapter 2, the anchor in the storm, where we will explore how God steadies your steps when the storms of life rise against you. Choosing to walk with God is not a single moment, but a daily decision. Every morning you wake up to crossroads, the decision to follow your own impulses or to trust his direction. Some days the choice feels easy, and other days it feels like a battle against doubt, fear, and temptation. Yet with every faithful step, the bond between you and God grows stronger, and your path becomes clearer. Consider how distractions fight for your attention. Social media, endless news cycles, and constant comparison whisper that you are falling behind. They urge you to chase what others have instead of focusing on what God has placed in front of you. But walking with God requires a narrowing of focus, a discipline to listen for his voice above the noise. And when you do, you find that his guidance always leads you toward growth, not destruction. Confident, the call to walk is not just spiritual, it is deeply practical. Walking with God influences how you handle relationships, how you manage your time, how you respond to challenges. It reshapes the way you see failure, not as an end, but as a lesson. And it teaches you to value progress over perfection, because God is more interested in your direction than your speed. In covenanting with God also means choosing faith over fear. Fear says you are not enough, that you will fail, that you are alone. But faith says you are carried, guided, and strengthened by a power greater than yourself. Each time you choose faith over fear, you take a step that changes not only your path, but the paths of those who look to you for hope. This is why the call matters so deeply. Without it, people drift, moving from one pursuit to another without ever finding lasting peace. With it, even the smallest routines, working, serving, loving, forgiving, become part of something eternal. Now let us continue forward in Chapter 1, the call to walk, as we see how answering this call transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. When you answer the call to walk with God, the path does not suddenly become easy, but it becomes purposeful. The world often offers shortcuts, promising comfort without responsibility, pleasure without discipline, and progress without patience. Yet every shortcut comes at a cost, and those costs are often hidden until it is too late. Walking with God protects you from paths that look attractive but lead to emptiness. Think of a builder constructing a house. If he builds on sand, the structure may rise quickly, but the storm will reveal its weakness. If he builds on rock, the process takes longer, requires more effort, and demands patience, but the foundation will hold. Your life is the same. To walk without God is to build on sand. To walk with Him is to build on rock. And those who build on rock can withstand storms that level everything else around them. But here lies the challenge. Walking with God requires surrender. It requires giving up the illusion of control and trusting that His direction, even when unclear, is wiser than your own. Many resist this surrender because it feels like weakness, but in truth it is the greatest strength. For the one who walks with God is never led astray, never abandoned, never forgotten. This call is not for a select few, it is for everyone. The student overwhelmed by pressure, the parent burdened with responsibility, the worker drowning in endless demands, all are invited to walk with Him. The question is not whether God will walk with you, but whether you will choose to walk with Him. And once that choice is made, life takes on a clarity and direction it never had before. To walk with God is to walk with focus in a world of distraction, to walk with courage in a world of fear, to walk with purpose in a world obsessed with empty pursuits. It is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of strength. And each step, no matter how small, becomes part of a greater journey written by a hand far wiser than your own,